Chapter 272, Observing Each Other. Detective, a colleague. However, the fact that he's able to assist the police in dealing with such a serious case shows that he truly is a well-known detective, at least within Civilhouse Yard. Isn't the serial killer involved in devil worship supposed to be handed over to the Nighthawks, mandated punishers, or the machinery hive mind? All the police department needs to do is send a few assistants, so why would they need to seek the help of a private detective? Yes, the 11 serial murders must have caused a sensation. Civilhouse Yard is under a lot of pressure, and they aren't willing to just wait in misery. Many thoughts flashed through Klein's mind, but on the surface, he revealed a smile. All right. He boarded Isengard Stanton's rented carriage and saw a young man with brown hair inside. This is my assistant, Isengard, who had a thin and angular face, introduced. Please have a seat. He didn't close the carriage's door, nor did he let the carriage driver drive the horse forward to show that he meant no harm. Klein deliberately sat down uneasily and asked worriedly, "What would you like to talk about, Mr. Stanton?" Isengard took out a dark pipe and said, "I want to know what you've learned from following Ma'am Lopez. Did you hear or discover anything?" I'm also a detective, and you should know that we have confidentiality agreements in this business," Klein deliberately replied as though he was in a dilemma. "I'm asking you on behalf of Civilhouse Yard. This has nothing to do with a confidentiality agreement." Isengard rubbed the pipe with his thumb. "A pound, how about 2 pounds? Having learned a lesson from the previous incident with Merceau, together with the fact that there was no need to keep it a secret, Klein replied without hesitation, "Sure." "All right." Isengard smiled and took out 2 one-pound notes from his pocket. Klein acted as though he was recalling something before frankly saying, "We only heard one sentence. Ma'am, Lopez attempted to order her subordinates to tell Capim that he's not to send anyone over in the next few days." "Capim," Isengard nodded, seemingly enlightened. "Got it." "You know Capim?" Klein didn't hide his surprise. Isengard handed the notes over and said with a faint smile, "He's one of the most controversial magnates in Sherwood Borough. In Backland, innocent girls often go missing along deserted streets, and after a long time, they might be chanced upon in all sorts of legal or illegal brothels. A lot of rumors point to Capim as the criminal honcho filled with blood and filth on his hands, but due to a lack of evidence, he remains free to this date. Furthermore, he knows a lot of important people. If that's true, then this fellow should die 1,000 times over." Klein nodded, sighed, and said, "This is Backland, Mr. Stanton. I shall bid you farewell." "Thank you for your cooperation." Isengard got up midway as a polite gesture to send him off. "By the way, your fighting skills are excellent. Maybe we'll have a chance to work together in the future. How should I address you?" "Sherlock Moriarty," Klein answered briefly and got off the carriage. Only when he boarded a newly arrived tracked carriage did Isengard Stanton instruct his assistant to close the door and order the carriage driver to head towards Hillston Borough. Turning his head to the side, he looked out of the window. The gray-haired elderly gentleman had put away his dark pipe, pulled out a brass ornament from his pocket, slowly stroking it in his hand. The brass ornament was a pocket-sized open book with a vertical eye in the center. The appearance and getup of Mr. Moriarty from just now were a bit out of place. He wore very cultured gold-rimmed glasses, but he had deliberately grown a beard around his mouth, making him look crude and barbaric. This is not quite in line with the norm. In this day and age, people who wear gold-rimmed glasses tend to care a lot about their image, the image of having knowledge and bearing. Maybe he's trying to hide something. Of course, it's also possible that he's a gentleman with an unusual aesthetic sense. Isengard seemed to be talking to himself, but he also seemed to be teaching his assistant. At that moment, Klein, who was sitting on the carriage, mumbled to himself silently as he leaned against the wall. That Detective Isengard Stanton is problematic. Ever since I activated my spirit vision, he had a blue color of rational thought and indifference, and maintained a purple color of spirituality dominance. There weren't many other colors of emotion appearing. For normal people, unless they're wholeheartedly focused on studying a difficult problem, it's very difficult to maintain similar states for extended periods of time. Other emotions will inevitably appear, the difference being the issue of how long they can remain in that state. Yes, either Detective Isengard Stanton is one such genius at observation and reasoning with extraordinary talent, or he's a beyonder. The tracked public carriage had 2 floors as it ferried more than 40 passengers towards the Backland Bridge area. Klein gradually reined in his thoughts and cast his gaze out the window and admired the 2 to 3-story buildings on the other side of the road. Occasionally, he could see brown houses 5 or 6 stories high, a sign of Backland's latest trend and of the kingdom's most advanced construction technology. After a transfer, Klein arrived at Iron Gate Street and got off the carriage opposite the Bravehearts Bar. As it wasn't the peak period at the bar yet, the moment he entered, he saw Kaspars drinking at the bar. The old man with the brandy nose had requested for a glass of Langsky Proof. His eyes narrowed in satisfaction as he savored the fragrance of the malt and the burning sensation in his throat. Klein moved closer, rapped the counter, and asked with a smile, "Is Merrick here?" At the same time, he had one hand in his pocket as he gripped Azek's copper whistle, using his spirituality to shield its negative effects. Before he finished his sentence, he felt gazes sweep past him. It was evident that they were observing him. By the time he finished asking his question, the gazes moved away from him and focused on Kaspars. The old man with the huge scar on his face opened his eyes, and when he saw that it was Klein, he said in a bad mood, "He didn't come. He didn't come yesterday either." "He didn't come." Klein let out a breath of relief, no longer using his spirituality to rap Azek's copper whistle. "When I mentioned Merrick, someone looked at me. When they heard that I was asking him for his whereabouts, the gaze shifted again. Someone is also looking for Merrick." Klein resisted the urge to turn around and observe as he analyzed the abnormality. Combined with an original doubt of his, he felt that the question now had a general answer to it. "I was puzzled last week. Why would a Sequence 5 Miss Bodyguard accept a 3-day protection mission for £1,000? This isn't to say that the price is too low, but rather that someone of that level already counts as a powerful person. In the Church of the Goddess, she's qualified to be a Nighthawk deacon or a diocese bishop. If she can gain the favor of a holy artifact, she can even compete for the position of an archbishop or a high-ranking deacon. Among the various secret organizations and intelligence agencies, Sequence 5 also implies that the person would be the person in charge of a borough, or at least the number 2 or 3. Even if it were a beyonder who isn't a part of any organization, a person with such strength would be able to establish a small organization of their own. No matter which point of view it was from, Miss Bodyguard could enjoy tributes from her subordinates, so there was no need for her to personally take the job. At the time, I thought that I had most likely hired a Sequence 6 security guard, who would be able to last a little longer against the expert sent by Backerland, creating a chance for me, but who knew that Miss Bodyguard would be so terrifyingly strong? Judging from today's events, Miss Bodyguard and Merrick are probably similar to me. Their identities are sensitive, and they have to hide away. Yes, their situation might be even worse, and they have to constantly worry about being hunted down. To be able to hunt Miss Bodyguard, even if that organization doesn't have any high-sequence beyonders, they must have some holy artifacts or multiple Sequence 5 members. Of course, this is just my hunch. Perhaps it has to do with the exposure of Merrick as a beyonder, and he's now targeted by the Machinery Hivemind squad. After some thought, Klein said with regret, "Is that so? I was planning on playing cards with him." Upon hearing something that didn't match Klein's usual manner of speech, Kaspars was alarmed. He didn't look around either, but chortled and said, "I'll be having a card game tonight. Texas, do you want to join in?" "No, I just want to play till dinner. Sigh, I think I'll just head home." Klein sighed and left the Bravehearts bar without even ordering anything to drink. He had intended to ask Kaspars about other Beyonder gatherings, but in that situation, he carefully abandoned the idea. In fact, he could have gone to a card room or some relatively sealed area to talk with Kaspars, but just to be safe, he decided to wait until next time. Klein was in no hurry to return home. Instead, he went to the one-bedroom apartment he rented in Eastborough and started divining above the gray fog to confirm that no one was following him. After easing his mind, he reached Minsk Street before it was completely dark and found all sorts of subscribed newspapers crammed into his mailbox. I was in a hurry to leave today, so I didn't even have time to read it. At the Kellogg Club, I had a good meal after shooting practice and took a nap, before being forced to play a few tennis matches with Talim. Hess, my skills aren't good enough, but my physical fitness can make up for that. He mumbled silently as he opened the door and went inside before twisting the gas lock. He brought the newspapers into the living room and sat on the sofa. He lit the wall lamp and started reading. Klein first read through the Backland Morning Post and immediately flipped to the 5th page and saw an advertisement. It was an advertisement for the Ernst firm's purchase of goods. The prices were 7 pence per liter of flour, 1 solely of butter, 6 pence per pound of lard, 1 solely 3 pence per pound of cream, 8 solely per pound of Marquis black tea. In other words, there would be a Beyonder gathering in the same place at 8 in the evening tomorrow. The code to the door is to knock 7 times heavily, 1 time lightly, 6 long intervals, and 1 short interval in that order. The remaining 3 and 8 are meaningless. Klein interpreted the content, leaned back against the sofa, and began to look forward to the gathering tomorrow evening. He wanted to sell some formulas to see if he could buy the corresponding ingredients or items.